Hi, and welcome to my circle time. So this circle time would be if I were to be introducing the topic of honeybees. And I've created a week's worth of lesson plans for the entire week. And this would be an example of the first day of that week. So when I first start out a brand new topic, the best thing to do is to give the children a chance to ask questions or to tell what they know. They all love to share what they know about whatever topic it is. So if I say, boys and girls, thank you for coming to Circle. This week we're going to be learning about honeybees. Does anybody know anything about honeybees? Please share with us what you know. I will call on quiet hands. And so now I'm going to pretend as if that were happening. So I would say, oh my goodness, Addison has such a quiet body. Addison, I'd like to call on you, please. Addison, would you please tell me what it is you know about honeybees? And Addison might then say, I know that they drink nectar. Okay, so let's see. Addison knows that they drink nectar. So I'm going to write the word nectar. Does anyone else know something about honeybees? And maybe Anya says, I know that they collect pollen. Oh, okay. Let's write down pollen. They collect pollen. Does anyone know anything else about honeybees? And someone will inevitably say, they have a stinger. So we'll say, oh yeah, they do. They have stingers. Okay, we'll fill that up with whatever they know, and anything anybody says, I will write down. And so this is pre-literacy, and it is direct literacy as well. So children who cannot read are still getting something from seeing me say a word that they said, and then use these symbols to write down the words that they said. That's very powerful for a young child. Then I'll throw out, does anybody have any questions about, like, is there anything that you want to know? And so maybe somebody might say, where do they live? Where do honeybees live? You could say, where do they live? So here will be questions. Here's what they know. Here's what they want to know. At the end of the week, we will come back, we will revisit this, and we will say, boys and girls, what have we learned? So this is what we call a KWL chart. Know, want to know, learned. And that's just a really simple way to make meaningful context with children. What do they already know? So we attach what they know to what they want to know. And then at the end of the week, we attach everything together. And it makes a nice little unit in their mind. Okay, so I will tell my class, okay, boys and girls, we're going to be learning all about honeybees this week. And at the end of the week, we're going to write down what we learned. I bet it's going to be such a long list. We might have to get a big, long piece of paper and continue writing on it. There's going to be so much. So since we are about to learn about honeybees, I almost said butterflies, honeybees, we have some new materials on our shelf, and I would show them our shelf, that will help teach you about honeybees. And I want to show you one right now. And the first material is called the Parts of a Honeybee 3-part cards. Now they've all been introduced to 3-part cards, so this is nothing new. So I will just go and get it from the shelf. And I will show it to them. I'll show it where it is on the shelf so that they know where to get it. And then I will show them the 3-part cards. So I'm not going to go through the very long lesson, but what I do is, just like I've done with every other 3-part card, is I lay out the name card, which is the card that has the picture and the name. and then I will match it to the corresponding picture card and the label. And I'm just picking these at random so they do not match. So here's the label. Okay, so once we have all the cards laid out and they're nice and organized, and I've shown and we've matched, then I will show them that they can make their own book of the honeybee. And I will get that off the shelf, and here it is sitting on its own tray right here. My book of the parts of a honeybee by so-and-so. So each child will do their own. And what they will do, and there are books here and enough for, you would want to pre-prepare all the books for all the children. So they would take their 3-part cards and they would color and then write down each word. So here's bee. So after they colored that and wrote bee, then they would go to the next one. And they are in no particular order. So they would color the part that is highlighted. And as you can see, it's not colored with the color of the bee. It's colored in more of a pinky red. And that's to draw attention to the actual part so that the child can really see it. And then they're going to write the word head. And they would keep going, go to the next page. And now they would color in the thorax and they would write the word thorax. This is a powerful way to get children reading. So in science has actually proven now that learning to read is recursive with writing. So that means that not one comes before the other. Writing and reading are recursive. They feed each other. So the more you write, the better reader you become. The more you read, the better writer you become. They're both important components. And so if you are having your children making these books, these parts of books, and in Montessori, they're everywhere. Parts of the horse, parts of the spider, parts of the snake, parts of the fish, parts of the turtle. You name it, there's a parts of book. And there's often puzzles to go with them. So they're really ubiquitous in a Montessori classroom. So since we're doing honeybees, I got out my Blackline Masters and I created booklets for honeybees. And I would pre-prepare a lot of these so that I'm not being asked in the middle of class, Teacher Kelly, we ran out of honeybee paper. That's the worst, because then you have to leave your classroom, go to wherever the copier is, make your copies, and then come back and your assistant has to manage the classroom while you're gone. So you want to make sure that these are all prepared way ahead of time before you ever are in front of the children. And they're just living on their own little tray with the marker that you need so that everything's there and the teacher is not part of the equation anymore. Once you give the lesson, this is an independent work. That's the beauty of it. So here's my 3-part cards and my book, and they go together. You can see they complement one another. I'll put them back on the shelf so that it's ready for the next person. Again, that's a mantra in Montessori. We want to make sure that it's ready for the next person so that we're being gracious and courteous. Okay, so that's my first lesson. Oh, sorry, my second lesson. My first lesson was the KWL. Second lesson was the 3-part cards. My third lesson is, okay, now boys and girls, now you know where the 3-part cards are and you know where the booklets are. During work time, that's available to you. Now, I'm going to show you a really fun project. Because bees have to live in hives, we're going to make our own bee hive. It's for a type of bee called a mason bee. And these bees help pollinate. They don't make honey, but they pollinate. And we can make a mason bee hive. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And I come over here to our shelf so that they see where I'm getting everything. And then I'm going to show them my example of a mason bee hive, which is, it's really interesting. These bees like to make little mud hives in these tubes. Oh, one fell out the other day, so oh, there it is. Yeah. So here's a tube. They take mud and they use their spit and they chew up a bunch of stuff and they use their spit and then they create these mud bedrooms kind of, and then they live in here. They fill this all up with mud and they live in there. It's really cool. So this is one that I purchased, but we can make one out of household materials. You just need a soup can. Here's a soup can. And you need 3 toilet paper rolls. See, like that. And you put them in your soup can. And I got a squish, but that's okay. They're paper. They squish. Squish them in there. Now look, there's 3 toilet paper tubes in there. Now we take recycled paper and we roll it. So this is just a recycled paper, and I'm going to roll it and make a tube out of it. Roll it, and then, oops, I forgot my tape. We need tape. Here's tape. And I tape it like so, and then I put it in here. And I do enough so that I fill it up. So here's one that I already did, and here's one that is not done. And I'll take this out so that you may have a turn with it, boys and girls, okay? Got these toilet paper rolls. And put it all back. Everything's right here, ready to go. And here's my bin, and it's got all my supplies in here so that the children, they have everything that they need. And I would have been eating canned green beans, canned corn, tomato soup, whatever food that can enable me to have on hand many of these so that the children aren't waiting for them. Okay, so I have it in this nice little box. That would be my next lesson. After we teach them about doing mason beehives, then I'm going to show a math. Now, again, I try to keep it nice and quick. So I have to show and then put it away, show, put it away, go on to the next thing. Boys and girls, now that you know how to make your mason beehives, I'm going to play a game with you. And it's called the Honeybees and Ladybugs game. Okay, I'm going to get it. It's right over here on the shelf. I would take my tray. In my tray, I have a nice wooden bowl, and in it are honeybees and ladybugs, 10 of them to be exact. And then this piece of paper, which I would have a stack on here. I don't right now, but I would in this lesson. And I'll show you how this works. This is our math. Now, at kindergarten standard is children need to know their partners of 10. I think that 4-year-olds can learn their partners of 10 too. So in this bowl, I have 10 lima beans, and they are painted on one side red, and they look like ladybugs, and on the other side they're painted yellow, and they look like honeybees. So there are 10 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, there are 10. And what you do is you just shake the beans, drop them, and see how it falls. Okay, so I'm going to tilt my laptop so you can see. All right, so now I have, and I wouldn't do it on the tray, obviously. I'm just showing it to you this way, but I would do it on a work rug, and the children would be able to see all the honeybees and the ladybugs. And what you do is you count. How many ladybugs do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so we write a 4. How many honeybees do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 honeybees and 4 ladybugs. And so that is a partner of 10. 4 and 6 are partners of 10. We do it again. We do it as many times as there are rows. So we do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 honeybees. This time I'm going to write 5. How many ladybugs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 ladybugs. Okay. Oh, I see we have a partner of 10 here, 4 and 6, and another partner of 10, 5 and 5. Let's do it again. Let's see, how many ladybugs do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, we got another 5 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, another 5. Let's see what we get next time. Ooh, this time I got more ladybugs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ladybugs. How many honeybees? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you guys get this. These are really easy to make. I made enough for each child in a kindergarten class. So I think there were 27 students. So I made 270 of them one year. And the kids had a great time. They really learned their partners of 10. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with learning about honeybees, but it's incorporating the word honeybees in with our math lesson, which is also teaching the partners of 10. And then I would have them transition out of here to go to work time, because I try to keep my circle times short. As you know, I would want to get them going so that they can get to work, so that they can get their hands on these cool things. So then I say, okay, boys and girls, now that you've seen 3 things that you can do with honeybees, I'm going to play a song, and I'm going to choose 3 of my quietest listeners to pretend to be bees and buzz on over to go to work. Now, friends, I showed you 3 works. Does everyone get to do those same works all at the same time? No. So if somebody gets to that work before you do, that's okay. They will finish and they'll put it back on the shelf so that you can have a turn. Everyone will get a turn, I promise. Okay? And I'm going to show you more work tomorrow. And so then there will be even more things to do with honeybees. And then the next day I'll show you even more things to do with honeybees. You're going to have so many honeybee projects to do. You won't have to ever worry about not getting a turn. Okay? But maybe if someone's using some of the works that you want to choose, maybe you can go cut a banana first. Maybe you can go cut some cheese. Maybe you want to make yourself a snack. Maybe you want to do the hand washing work. Or maybe you haven't built the pink tower in a long time. Go ahead and choose some of the other works, and when it's available, you'll be able to have a turn. Okay, ready? Here we go. Oh, I notice Bradley and Sarah and Raham are sitting quietly. Ready, bumblebees? Here we go. I'm going to start that over. So then they'd be flying on out. Oh, great. Okay, who else is sitting quietly? Oh, choose 3 more kids. Fly out. Okay, so that's how I would do it. And that's just a quick, I thought of it today, this circle time. Now I'm going to go ahead and transition to second circle. So now if I've finished my first circle, children have been working the whole morning, and now it's time to come together because it's almost time for the older kids to have lunch and the younger kids to go home. Younger kids at our school go home at noon, and older kids have lunch. So at 11:30, I typically will bring them back to circle by playing the circle time music, and they all know that music, and they clean up their materials. They put everything away. The children who are not done will stay finishing cleaning up. Everyone else who is done, they can come to circle time. We do expect children to clean up everything before they come to circle. They may not leave a mess, so they do have to clean up their work. Unless it's a big work that they're working on, then they can put their name tag on it and they can come back to it tomorrow. So They come back to second circle. We've done some walking around the circle, maybe a little bit of movement. And now it's time for me to read a story. So the story I'm going to read is called The Honeybee Man. Boys and girls, what a great work time we had today. I saw so many friends working so hard. I saw people making bees nests. I saw people making their honeybee parts books. I saw people doing the 3-part cards. I even saw some people pretending to be bees and sip nectar. Isn't that great? So now I want to read you a very special story called The Honeybee Man. I like this story a lot because I know somebody who is a honeybee man. In fact, he's one of our students' grandfathers. Isn't that cool? And I like this book because in the beginning of the book, they show you, if you wanted to keep bees, how a beehive is constructed. That's really interesting to me. Maybe you want to look at this book later. The Honeybee Man by Layla Nargi. Pictures by Kirsten Brooker. One quiet July dawn, Fred rolls out of his bed and into his slippers. He greets 2 members of his enormous family. "Good morning, Copper," he calls to his dog, still curled up on the rug. "Good morning, Cat," he calls to his cat, named Cat. She stretches in a pool of sunlight. There's his cat named Cat. Fred shuffles downstairs to the kitchen and fixes a cup of tea. He takes his teacup in one hand and creaks back upstairs, then up another flight. Climbing a ladder that climbs the wall, he pushes open a hatch and pulls himself out onto the roof. And here, this shows the picture of his house and how he has to go up 1 flight of stairs, 2 flights of stairs, and then up the ladder. Here's the hatch. He climbs out onto the roof. That would be fun. All around is quiet Brooklyn City, brownstones and linden trees, a tall clock tower and bridges in the distance. Near the edge of the roof is another tiny city. It has 3 houses, each with 2 white stories and 1 red story, and inside thousands of tiny rooms made of wax. From the outside, the tiny city also seems quiet. So what do you think that's describing? Beehives. Fred inhales the smells of a summer city morning, maple leaves and gasoline and the river and dust. He turns to the tiny city and inhales its smaller, sweeter smell, a little like caramel, a little like ripe peaches. To the first little house, Fred calls, "Good morning, Queen Mab." And to the other 2 houses, "Good morning, Queen Nefertiti. Good morning, Queen Boadicea." Then Fred greets the rest of his family, which has more members than he can even count. "Good morning, my bees, my darlings." Inside their houses, the 3 queen bees and their thousands of worker bee daughters don't answer, but Fred knows they are busy. The queens are laying eggs. Some workers are building wax rooms. Some are feeding babies. Some are making the hive tidy. Others are getting ready to forage in flowers abloom all across Brooklyn. These are interesting. Fred closes his eyes and lets his mind wander. Will Queen Mab's daughters find mint flowers as they did last year? Will Queen Boadicia's honey be dark like molasses or light and clear like amber? As he thinks about honey, Fred's mouth begins to water. I can't wait to find out. Fred pictures the park at the end of his block. He imagines his bees moving from clover to clover, flying over them low and slow with their see-through wings, which flap and also twist like propellers. Fred wishes he could fly there with them, with the wind rushing over his back. That'd be fun. Fred opens his eyes and the hives are alive, humming with a low hum as low as a whisper. Fred hums back. Tell me what it's like to fly through the world. Zzz, hum the bees. To Fred, this sounds like an answer. If only he could understand. Young bees on their first flights circle in the air. There, there, my girls, don't be afraid, Fred says in a soothing voice. As he speaks, the young bees seem to pluck up their courage. On the streets below, trucks rumble and babies wail in their strollers. But inch by inch, the young bees shimmy past the edge of their tiny city. It is easy for Fred to recognize the older bees who are used to moving between their small world and the giant world of people. They zip out of the hives and throw themselves at the air, embracing it with their wings. A few land on Fred's arms. Hello, Fred, they seem to say. Hello, girls, have a nice day. Now off you go. Fred gives them a gentle flick with a finger and away they zoom. Do you see the bees on his arm? See? They landed on his arm like they're friends. They might be saying, hi, Fred. Fred watches his bees fly into his backyard garden and other gardens on the block. He sees the bees dive into sweet pea and squash flowers. If he were closer, he could see them using their tube-like tongues to drink in flower nectar, which they store in honey sacs inside their bellies. Then it's off to the next pea plant, to the sage flowers in the next backyard, and maybe, if Fred is lucky, to some blooming blueberry bushes somewhere across town. I like these beautiful paintings of these bees. See how pretty they are? When the bees return to their hives, Fred notices that they are flying slowly. They're heavy with nectar. Inside, Fred knows they are performing waggle dances to tell the others where the best flowers grow. He knows that sister bees are taking the nectar and storing it in the tiny wax rooms. And he knows that others are fanning their wings to evaporate the water from the nectar so it will turn to honey. Day after day, Fred watches the bees zip out over the blare of the city. How tireless you are, he sighs, wishing he could be as strong and as free as the bees. One afternoon at the end of August, Fred climbs again to his roof. He is wearing his black rubber rain boots and his white head veil and a scratch on his hand from Cat the cat, who did not want to be woken this morning. He makes an announcement to the bees. Sweeties, I have come for the honey. Please do not sting me, he says. Fred puffs clouds of smoke into the tiny houses, and the bees burrow deep down into the hive. From the very top floor, Fred lifts out the honeycomb. He packs it into buckets and says, thank you for the honeys, or honeybees. See, he's taking out, it's a comb, it's a honeycomb, and you pull it out. It's made, it does have wood around it because it's man-made, but the bees then build the honeycombs inside. Pretty amazing. Fred hauls the buckets down the ladder and into his house where he banishes Copper, the honey-loving dog, to the kitchen. Fred sets a frame of honeycomb over a plastic tank and slices off the wax caps, and the honey begins to flow. See how he does that? He's taking off the wax, and then the honey just flows right down into the bucket. He places the honeycomb in a spinning machine, which squeezes every last drip of honey out of it. Then he pours the honey into jars. Then he puts labels on his jars. Fred's Brooklyn honey, made by tireless Brooklyn bees. See that? See, that's how he does it. In the late afternoon, Fred sits on his stoop, enjoying the cool end of summer breeze. When his neighbors come out to chat, Fred gives each of them a jar of deep gold honey. One neighbor asks, "Where did this honey come from?" And Fred says in a humming sort of whisper, "From the sweet pea flowers in your backyard, from the flowers of the linden trees shading our block, and maybe, if we are lucky, from sour sweet blueberry bushes somewhere across town." And here are his friends and neighbors enjoying the honey that he gave them. Isn't that nice? Up on Fred's roof, the bees are huddled back in their own city, waiting for the rays of tomorrow's sun to call them up and away over Brooklyn. Their wings are tattered from flying, and the nip of autumn is in the air. Soon it will be time to rest. Down on the stoop, Fred opens a jar of honey. The honey glistens and shimmers in the last of the sunlight. Fred sticks in a finger. It is sweet like linden flowers. It is sharp like rosemary. It is ever so slightly sour. "Ah," says Fred, absorbing these happy flavors, And then he says, "Blueberries." Did you know that different types of honey tastes differently depending on what flowers the nectar came from? So if the nectar came from flowers that are not very sweet, like well, like dandelions. Dandelions aren't very sweet. And so if the bees are collecting from dandelions, maybe the honey won't be as sweet. But if they're collecting from blackberry bushes, where those flowers are accompanying the very sweet berries, well then maybe the honey will taste very sweet like blackberries. I mean, somebody is in front of the door. So, boys and girls, I have now a special treat for you. I'm going to release my quietest listeners first, and then you get to go outside and put on your coat and your hat and your shoes, and then you will get to try a piece of bread with 3 different types of honey from 3 different types of flowers, and you can tell me which one you liked the best. Was it the lavender? Was it the wildflower? Or was it the acacia tree? So I'm looking for quiet bodies who are ready to go. And, okay, so now I'm going to stop pretending like I have a circle time group here. So this would be where I would then excuse my quiet bodies, and you can bet everyone starts, getting their, they start sitting up nicely, they start putting their hands in their laps, they close their mouths, and they are respectful because they want to be chosen. And so that's called the raindrop effect. So if you start noticing who is doing what you want them to do, then pretty much everyone else will start doing it too. And they want to go outside and get their treat. So your assistant would have, 3 plates set up with the 3 different honeys, and you would have these are just little teeny tiny pieces of bread that you cut up, and so that it's just a taste test. And kids can try it after they've gotten their shoes on and their coats on and they're ready to go out to play. Then they get their treat. So it's also a way to get them to be independently putting on their hats and coats and boots. Okay, so that is 2 circle times in a nutshell. And what I want from you is to come up with your plan. What are you going to study? What are you going to be teaching? So it has to be a topic. Okay, so I don't want it to just be random, or we're going to just dance around with scarves to some random music. No, I want it specific. So you need to have a topic, a theme. My theme was bees. You could have it be anything. It could be frogs. It could be butterflies. It could be stars. It could be leaves. It could be types of flowers. It could be bunnies. It could be squirrels. It could be literally anything that children are interested in. In the fall, I like to always study spiders because, of course, you're seeing spiders all over the place. So that's a fun topic too. There's tons of books, there's tons of music, there are tons of snacks. You can do food prep, like spider food prep. And it's really fun to do spiders. Children love to do it. You can do fake webs, you can do crayon rubbings, you can do all kinds of things. It's just awesome. If you want to study something, you know, really cool, like maybe you're studying the continent of Africa, then you could do a whole study on elephants. You know what I mean? The sky is the limit, really. You could study clouds. I've had teachers study clouds before. You could study volcanoes. You could study the rock cycle. You know, you could talk about igneous and sedimentary and what's the other one? It'll come to me. The 3 different types of rocks. So your goal is to determine what you want to study and how are you going to support that within your circle time? How are you going to incorporate something math, something literacy, some music, some movement? So I incorporated all of those things. If you notice, I had food. I had an art project. Well, it was kind of an art project. It was a practical life thing where they're actually making something useful to the world. But it feels like art because you're cutting paper and you're rolling it up, and you can paint your cans too, and you can say Kelly's Bee Hive, and the children can write their own names on it, and then you hang it from a string and you can hang it up in your garden. We had literacy, so we had a story time, plus we had made our own little booklets. That's literacy. We had a transition song, so they got to dance and pretend they were little bees. And I have a song for each day. If you look at my circle time plans, I have a song for each day. We have a book for each day. We have a transition for each day. We have a movement for each day. There's art. There's all kinds of things for each day. I have a plan. So you are going to show me one day out of a 5-day plan, and I want you to show me your circle time. I want you to actually have a book. I want you to sing a song if it's involving that. If it's involving doing a finger play or a felt board, show it to me. Okay, just like I showed you my art project, just like I showed you my math project, just like I showed you my taste test. I took all morning, I got everything ready, and I made everything available so that I could show you exactly what I would do in a circle time. So that's what I expect of you too. Don't just try to whip it out. Do a really well-planned job and do a good job. Do your best. This is going to be your biggest project because the portfolio, some people don't have access to printers, and so I'm not enforcing that because we don't have our lab open at Green River College. And so it doesn't seem fair to ask people to make a portfolio, and some people would have to actually go and purchase a printer, and I can't do that for you or to you. But I also made some other projects that I wanted to share with you. So here is a little book all about bees, and it's really cute. And you can see I made another one for up on my board. And it has a lot of information in here. And I just colored and, you know, made sure that you could see everything really well. But what I would do is I would have my example on the tray. Here's the tray. And then a lot of these available because the next day, you know, we're going to do these. So then children will be writing the words as best they can. They'll write the word all about bees by Susie. And we'll have a stack of these available for them too, so they can cut it out. And then they go to the next page. And they're going to write down the words. Bee facts. And they write down all these words. This would be, I would have my advanced 4s and my 5s be doing this. Then you go to the next page. They color and they write in the words. You can see how this is a gradual release of responsibility. So children have an example, then they do it. I do, we do, you do. Okay? So this is something that would also be on the shelf. And I also have for my very older children. So, you know, when you have kindergarten class, you've got young kindergartners and then you've got older kindergartners, and the older kindergartners are typically much more advanced. And so you want to give them something that challenges them. So I have this Honeybee book, and it has all the parts of the bee as well. And then the children make their own. So they get to use this book to then make their own as well. But this book is a little bit fun because it talks about the animal kingdom. So it's the kingdom Animalia, the phylum is Arthropoda, the class is Insecta, the order is Hymenoptera, the family is Apida, the genus is Apis, the species is Mellifera, and the variety is honeybee. That's pretty specific. So this is kind of cool. The other thing that goes along with this is the three-dimensional objects that go with another set of three-part cards. So we've got three-part cards and lots of different three-part cards. So these are cool because they have pictures, actual pictures. So you can see we've got eggs, adult, pupa, larva. This is when they're emerging, adult. And it has all of the parts here, or the life cycle. So it's the life cycle. So you've got, here's when they're larvae. Here's when they're eggs. Pupa. So the life cycle of the honeybee is also on the shelf so that the children can do the three-dimensional to two-dimensional matching. Just like when I showed you with the musical instruments, 3D to 2D is a great way to make sure children really understand the life cycle of something. And then I also have these beautiful, also again, three-part cards. These are really cool because they were hand painted by this wonderful artist. And I love to support local artists. He's not local here, but when I was in Denver, I met him and I just couldn't say no to his beautiful art. And it goes along with this book too. So it's really nice. It has a lot of the vocabulary. So when I read this book, I want to make sure that I give a lesson on these three-part cards. Hive, nectar. That's a new word, apiarist. That's cool. Worker bee. So within this week, we would learn about the different types of bees. So we've got the queen bee, the worker bee, and the drone bees. And so they would really get a chance to dive down and deep and learn a lot about bees this week. Drone bee. And then, so here's the name cards, here's the picture cards, and then here are the labels that go along with them. I just have them here in a basket, nice and neat, so children can just take the basket, take it to their work rug, do the work, put it all back in the basket, put it back on the shelf. Easy. I also have on the shelf the honeybee life cycle pictures. So you can see this is like the control because it tells you the order. So it goes like this. I couldn't see the other way. So it goes like that. And then, you know, this is all done on the work rug, of course. So the child lays out this at the top of the work rug, lays out the control, and then puts these cards in order. So it tells them, it shows them in which order to lay out the cards. Again, these are also hand painted by the same author that did the cards I just showed you. The same artist, I should say. And then, of course, I have various books that are also supporting the bee topic. These are just what I happened to have in my library right now, but of course I would always go get more. So these are the books that I have. Talk about honeybees. I would also go get the Magic School Bus Inside a Bee Hive book, and then on Friday we would read that and then let them watch the quick little video, the Magic School Bus video on being inside a beehive, which I think would really solidify their knowledge that they just accumulated over the course of a whole week of studying about honeybees. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing your circle times. And again, the way I'm doing all of my videos are just through Zoom. So I log into Zoom and I start a new meeting with just myself, and then I hit record. That's it. And then it turns it into an MP4, and I can upload it to my YouTube channel. If you have a Gmail account, it's you automatically can upload to your own YouTube channel. It's super easy. And then you just include that URL in your assignment, and then I can go and I can watch your videos. All right. They shouldn't be any more than 10 to 15 minutes long. They don't need to be long. Mine's longer because I'm explaining things, but you just do your circle time and then call it good. All right. If you have any questions, please feel free to get a hold of me. I look forward to looking at your videos. Thanks.